Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Oh, I am back with the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast, the show that has been near and dear to my heart. You thought I was going to say the whys in the house. I'll still say the whys in the house. Johnny, good to see you. Good to be seen by you. As always, happy Monday. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going to be a busy Monday for me, but you know what? We are in here kicking it off Monday morning with a show about the 49ers, so it's a good morning.
It's a good morning. Life can't be too bad.
We just got a press conference from John Lynch.
Yeah.
And so we're going to dive into the stuff.
I want to ask you, we talked a little right before the show. I'm about 92.3% sure that you have literally said the words nothing burger about this thing, and like just the terminology that out of all the things that you could call something that is not a big deal, there's about 100 terms that you can use, and nothing burger literally was thrown out there, and then we are told it is indeed a nothing burger. So how'd that sandwich taste?
I mean, it went about how I expected it to go. You know, I want to be careful because I don't want to just dismiss everything outright. There's some um, interesting things, but there's just been nothing definitive. And so about the substation and EMF and all of that, and so this becomes one of those places where if you really want to prove it or you really want to disprove it, there's a lot of available resources for that. Um and so the 49ers hired an outside consultant to come in. Now John Lynch did tell the reporters you can talk with their PR relations guy to get more of the details on that. I don't think anybody's going to actually talk to him about it because they heard what they've been suspecting and what they wanted, which was that it was a big nothing burger, that they brought somebody in. And so there's nothing to it. And it's going to end there. I think it's going to go that way with a lot of the training stuff now and preventing the injuries. The fact still is, though, and some of the beat reporters were really quick to try and defend the 49ers as being one of the healthier teams in the league several times. That's just patently false. And so, they were talking about like last year. Well, last year the 49ers weren't the most injured team. The issue is not the 49ers being the most injured team, and this is why the substation will continue to be an issue. This is why everything on the injury side will continue to be an issue, is because it's treated, if you're not the worst, it's not that bad. That's not the issue. The issue isn't that you're the most injured team every single year. It's that when you look at an aggregate over 9 years, they have been the most injured team. And we all saw it in front of our face when it was Fox put up the graphic during a game last year that Kyle Shanahan's 49ers had more games missed due to injury than any other team. during that time. So it's like we're not saying that they were the most injured every single team, but they have been the most injured team over the aggregate. That 8 out of 9 years they've been in the top 10. And so yeah, you can be the 8th most injured team, but guess what? If you're going to the playoffs and the 7 teams that were injured more than you are not in the playoffs, and you're facing off against 7 teams in the NFC West who are all healthy, or NFC that are all healthier than you, that is a problem. That is a problem for that. So it's just, it becomes an issue of that until they become healthier overall, this is not going away. Now, they have done some things to improve the training facilities. They said that they dove into the report cards. This is where I don't know. I felt like there was some non-answers and carefully worded answers in here. So what they did is the 49ers invested $9 million into more cold therapy tubs, hydro tubs, that they want to do more hydrotherapy, more cold plunge stuff, which has always been pretty popular in the NFL and sports, but it's even more popular now. I will say some of the data on that says that it's good for management of injuries, management of performance, and can help injuries from getting worse as you're playing through stuff, but it can slow healing of injuries. So, if for example, somebody gets a high ankle sprain, if you don't do the cold, hot, all that stuff, you can expect a recovery around 7 to 8 weeks. Now, your first 6 weeks, there's going to be a huge dip in performance as there's a lot of healing and there's still going to be swelling in the area. If you do the cold stuff, you may be able to get back to like 80% at 4 weeks, but then you're not going to get back to 100% till maybe 9, 10 weeks. That's kind of how things have gone in some different personal train or different health guys from that have worked with pro sports teams. You can find this info. They've got some great YouTube channels. They'll talk about this stuff, and that's where they've gone into it. That it's better for managing performance, but not managing healing, if that makes sense. So they've invested more into that. He said the players, in talking to them about why they got graded so poorly with their training staff and their training facilities, was that they didn't have the hydro facilities that other teams do, and that they didn't have as many people as other teams. So they're currently trying to hire 3 more physical trainers, PT people, so that the players can get more one-on-one time. I don't know if that's going to help. It can't hurt. They're investing $9 million, which kudos to them for that. That's a start. But
Yeah.
at the same point, one, why has this not been a petition earlier? If you're behind league average, this is a little Johnny come lately on this stuff. Two, I'm still not sold, because there seems to be issues that are not in the recovery. We saw this during training camp, that the rate of injury and soft tissue injury that the 49ers were dealing with was just astronomical. And so there's a problem on the prevention side, not necessarily on the recovery side. Now, there are some issues on the recovery side. We saw that with Jacob Cowing. We saw that with Ricky Pearsall. That there is some issues on the recovery side, but the prevention itself seems to be a big point of concern that I still have. I do, applaud them for $9 million invested. However, and that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me and you, Adam. But to a franchise that's worth $8 billion, and
Is it
it
as much?
has a salary cap to spend on players of $300 million, $9 million isn't really that much. So it's a start, but I'm still not convinced that this is gonna solve the 49ers injury woes. I hope so. I really hope I'm wrong. I want to see a healthy 49ers team this next year. If they're a healthy 49ers team, we're probably in the NFC Championship game looking to go into the Super Bowl. But there's a lot riding on that.
Did anything else that Lynch said jump out to you?
Yeah, there was a number of things. He talked about the Trent Williams contract situation. He said, they've intensified. I don't know what that means. look, I know we all get antsy with this stuff and we don't want a repeat. We kind of have that Trent Williams PTSD of it
Yeah.
going into August, it going through training camp, him then showing up and being out of football shape and not really up to the standard that we expect even of an offensive line. So I think I do think that uh, they will probably get this done on a similar time frame as Brock's contract last year, Fred's contract last year, Christian's contract last year, Kittle's contract last year. Those happened in the April, early, to May time. They got them all done before OTAs and training camp. I expect, or and mini camps. I expect these to be done before then. This to be done before then.
Behind
The
closed
biggest
doors, it might be all kind of done, and they're just not gonna
Yeah,
John
well,
Lynch
and
isn't
and
gonna
you
say everything.
Yeah, and you have to remember that there's more to these contracts than even just the numbers.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people do this, and this can be very much for age specific players, it's going to be okay. As you get older, we want to have our people have more eyes on you on your training. So we want to make sure that you're, because we need to manage our investment in you because you are getting older, your risk of injury is increasing. So we need to have a closer monitoring of that. And he may say, I don't want to be monitored. And so there's a working out of a schedule of you check in on these days, and that will be included in the contract. These contracts are, 12, 15 pages long. It can include what things he's not supposed to do. I remember um people probably don't remember this guy, but he played for the Cardinals for a long time. His parents live behind me here in Alabama. He played at the University of Alabama, then played for the Cardinals. One day he was still playing for the Cardinals. I saw him ripping through here on a Kawasaki, going about 70 through town. All the local cops knew him. They're like, that's Rashawn. We're good. And so they let him go. But we knew because of what his parents had said, everybody, like, he was not supposed to be riding that motorcycle. Technically, it was his parents' motorcycle, and he kept it here for when he was home and visiting, and he rode around here because it was in his contract that he couldn't ride that kind of motorcycle because of the injury risk
Too risky,
and
yeah.
everything. Right. So there are things like that built into some of these contracts. And as guys get older, there can even be more of that happening. And so some of the sticking points can be that stuff. We don't know exactly what the sticking points are. There's going to be probably they want guarantees of, okay, if we do this for you, we need you to not retire before June 2nd of 2027, sort of a thing. So it's a post June 1st, and there can be, things dealt with in that. There can be a lot of different things. So I don't know exactly what they are, but I do expect them to get done here within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
A max of 7 cheeseburgers per week, Trent. You are not allowed to have
I mean,
more
yeah, it
because
can
you're
be it can be
like
down to nutrition stuff.
yeah.
I will say, the last hero, I do do find this funny. He said, "We've investigated ourselves and found no evidence of wrongdoing. Also, we're not releasing the study in the name of the independent science that exonerates us." Yeah, I mean, again, they did say that if the reporters wanted the details on that they could talk to the PR guy. I just don't expect any of the reporters to talk to him. I don't think they're interested in
No.
this. They got what they were satisfied from what John Lynch told them. They said, "Well, an expert told everybody." The problem is we're kind of in a in a an era of people don't just have a trust the experts. We talked to an expert and they said it was fine. People don't buy that anymore. Um, so
'Cause you can hire anyone you want.
you're going to have problems. This reminds me of uh I think it was 2 years ago, there was a recall at Boar's Head, right? There at Boar's Head Meats that there was um, it was an outbreak of something at Boar's Head, and so the USDA sent the USDA to investigate where the USDA messed up and allowed the contamination to happen. And the USDA investigated the USDA and found that the USDA did nothing wrong. It does kind of remind you of that, so it is whatever. I've tried to be open-minded about both sides of this and say, okay, maybe there is something there. It is interesting that after they built Levi's, and that does expand the size of the substation. On the other side, I think sometimes when people start hearing things that it becomes confirmation bias. And so when you hear, well, the trees over there are dying, the grass over there is dying, and you go, well, yeah, and you hear about what time of year it is. Well, that's a dry season in California most of the time. They probably don't have irrigation over there because it's a huge substation, and they most of the time they don't run irrigation around those substations. They let their grass go dormant, and then it comes back in the times when the players aren't there in the spring and summer. And so I'm not sold that it's a substation that's killing the foliage around there. It could just be that it's not being watered. That's a potential. So I'm just careful with it. I don't think there's anything there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. And yeah.
You digress, basically, is what you
Anyways,
mean
yeah.
to say. Yeah. So, all right, let's keep it moving. Keep it moving. That's why I get paid the big bucks on this program, to keep things moving. Let's continue talking about the offensive line. Where are we at?
It's it was a lot of the same old lines. We really like Jake Brendel. We think he's a good player. We think he played really well for us last year. Dominic Pooney, we think he's going to be a great player in this league. He had the PCL. He struggled with it for about half the year, and he started to kind of come back into his own near the end of the year. And I go, well, yeah, but not against this in the Seattle game. Again, in the Seattle game, Dominic Pooney was really bad. Dominic Pooney has got to take another step. And there either
We
needs to
talked
be
about that.
competition
Yeah.
there, or a backup plan. Now they did say we like Connor Colby. And I will say, traits wise, yes. What I saw on tape, there were some moments that you go, okay, I really like what I see from Connor Colby. The problem was that there's certain severe deficiencies. He extends too far with his inside hand. He's a strong inside hand puncher, but that leaves him open too many times. And it was just becoming clear as the longer that Connor Colby played, that they were consistently having to leave a tight end, and sometimes it was George Kittle, in on that left side to help chip on a guy on the end, because they were trying to get Trent Williams to help out on the defensive tackle for Connor Colby. Connor has to take a big step up next year if he's going to be that left guard. Now, they brought in some guys. I'm not sold on any of these guys being a starter for the team. I don't know what the plan is there at left guard. I think they're going to have to try and address it in the draft. I don't know what the plan will be, because here's my concern is, if you want a starting quality guard in this draft, you're probably going to have to spend your first or second round pick on that guard. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. I really doubt they spend their first round pick on that guard. So that means you're probably having to spend your second round pick, which means you are most likely reaching on a player. I don't like it when they
Which we
go
don't
into a
want to do,
draft saying we have to find a starter at this position.
'cause it's a
If they say
reach.
we have to find a guy who could start at one of these positions because we want to upgrade, and we have four to choose from. So when this draft slot comes around, we choose the best of that group. It's always based upon a group. It's never truly best player available. I don't care what team it is. It is always a best of these list of positions. Um, I don't like it when they become really targeted to a position early in the draft. They tend to not do as well in those. Like Drake Jackson, for example, would be a good thing. Aaron Banks would be an example of that. Somebody who did not play well the last couple of years. They let walk in free agency. Then he got paid almost $20 million a year. That we've seen them, when they start targeting a position like that, it doesn't always go well.
So I agree on the whole reach thing. I always want to be able to be in a spot where we can take best available. That person can really help the team and add depth. And it's not about, oh, we have a gaping hole in outside linebacker. Let's just grab the guy out of Clemson because he may work, So I definitely second that. Speaking of linebacker, number 57 in your programs and number one in your heart. Um, what I want to gauge the temperature in the chat, and just we've had some time to, um, you know, have Dre Greenlaw back into the fold, and just how we feel about him. What are your thoughts? And real quick, I will say my mom. No one loves. I'll be honest. My mom loves David Lombardi more than you, Johnny. She loves that guy. She follows him, like, she'll always say, like, "Oh, did you see his latest YouTube?" "Yes, ma, I'm a fan. Yes, I'm a fan of the 49ers. I follow all the content creators." Yes. So, that would be cool. I did not see, maybe my mom saw that he gave you a shout out. I'll have to text her and find out. But that is cool because I do like David Lombardi, so, well, I mean, could be worth it to reach out. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I'll reach out to him. I didn't see that. Uh, it's that time where you're trying to balance listening to everybody who's out there, also trying to dive in on a bunch of draft prep and following all that stuff and catching up to speed. So when it comes to Dre Greenlaw, again, there's some things that John Lynch says, and I go, okay, it's a hard thing selling me on that when he says, yeah, we had Dre here, we loved him. Yes, everybody loves Dre, and everybody loves how he can play on there. But then he says, we feel like we really know Dre's body and know how to handle his body. I'm like, okay, he missed 40% of his starts when he was here.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that one. You can tell me that, but I just don't buy it. Now I get it that one of those was after a torn Achilles in the Super Bowl. He also missed another almost full season with 2 injuries that happened during the season. So I don't know if he's never played more than 14 games in a year or 15 games in a year for the 49ers. So I just don't know. And so I love Dre. I do like that they insulated themselves with his contract. I think he brings a lot of
Yeah,
juice. I think he's
they're
going to
being
bring
careful.
severe, major competition there with D Winters, and is somebody that you really want. You really want Nick Martin to understudy under. You really want Nick Martin to be a Dre Greenlaw. I think Nick Martin has more potential to meet that than D Winters at this point. D Winters, there was that first year big bump, and then it's just kind of been a slow climb since then. I was expecting more last year, and it just didn't really happen. So, um, that's where I'm at with it. I like that he's in the building. I think it's nothing but good that he's in the building. I just
Yeah,
don't trust that they actually do know his body and know how to keep him on the field. He's missed 40% of his games.
yeah. It's but with the whole, it wouldn't even be Dre. What about the whole team? What about, Kittle and Cowing and, like, just all, so I laugh at that too, but I love Dre Greenlaw and I'm glad that he's in the building as well. So yeah, let's talk through, what are you thinking? We talked about the draft a little bit. It's getting down to start the next time we have a show, whatever time it is, which, let me remind you, I say that because we never know when we're going to do a show. We like to say we
We
kind of
try
have a
we
time
try
frame.
and hit it
We do
7:30 a.m.
try.
Pacific time, Mondays and Fridays. We really
Yes,
do try.
we do. We really do try. But this is reason number 438 why you need to hit the notification bell. And when you're showing your phone to someone and showing them the channel, make sure you say, hey, they do their best, but just hit the notification bell because sometimes they go haywire. But all right. So next time we go live, obviously it's going to be April, and now we're into the draft. So let's talk through a little bit. And today, the first round. So based on, I'm not saying like a mock draft per se, but like, which are we going to do that soon?
Yeah, we'll do in here. I'm starting to kind of um start to figure out where my draft slots are, and kind of get uh my mental um draft board. Sorry, I was spacing out on it. My mental draft board together, and so that's where I start to go into the mock drafts. I don't like leaning on, okay, this is what other people have ranked guys.
You want
I've
to
been
rank
working
them?
through a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
different
yeah.
positions and things, and so it's getting really close. We'll probably start that next week, because what I'm looking at is starting some uh, some different mock drafts and see where things are.
All right, so we're talking through a little bit today about first round. What are your thoughts?
So as I've kind of been thinking through everything, looking at the draft prospects, looking at what the 49ers have done in the free agency and trade markets and all that stuff, defensive tackle was on the table early on, and then they traded for Osa Odigizua. And to me, that immediately took first round defensive tackle off the board. That wrecked a lot of mock drafts. And I know, some of the more recent ones, people are really favoring offensive tackle to the 49ers. Caleb Lamu is a really popular name that you see for the 49ers that late. Here's my issues with Caleb Lamu. And it's not necessarily as my issues aren't at Caleb Lamu as a prospect. My issues are that I don't think the NFL is going to be as high on some of the corners that are coming out as people are saying in the terms of valuation. Offensive tackle is a position where there is very few guys that you can plug and play, and there's somebody that is exposed 75% of the time on plays. So run plays, if your left tackle isn't good enough, that really hamstrings what you can do. If you if you're in pass protection and your left tackle's a problem, it really hamstrings what you're going to do. You can go back to the playoffs and with and the Super Bowl with what happened there with the Patriots. The kid they spent a high draft pick on last year was getting drug on social media after the Super Bowl because he was having a tough time in that game. If your offensive tackles are struggling, as we've seen with the 49ers, it's really hard to win games. Yeah. You can have a 20th ranked corner and you can still win a lot of games and you can still win some big games. It's nice to have those shutdown corners. But if we go back and we look at the 49ers last year, they had no pass rush. Still were able to limit what their corners were exposed to. If you look at Renardo Green, everybody said Renardo Green, didn't play as well last year and all this. He still was. It wasn't like dude was giving up 180 yards a game. It wasn't like you saw teams picking on him all the time because there's things you can do defensively that can help cover up your corners, or you limit what they're exposed to. You simplify their assignments sometimes. It can stress you, but it's not near what the stress is if your left tackle cannot block, if your right tackle cannot block. All that to say, I'm seeing right now people are projecting like 8 and 9 corners going in the first round. I don't buy that. I don't buy 8 corners or 6 corners even going in the top 20. Offensive tackle is a premium position. I don't think Caleb Lamu is going to be there. I just don't. I think he's going to be somebody. Right now, we're projecting him as the 5th overall tackle out of this draft, and I think there's like the NFL ready level where you have 5 different guys that are very NFL ready. That's going to be Mauigoa, Fano, Proctor, Freeling, and Lamu. And I think Freeling and Lamu are 2 guys that it's going to depend on how teams have evaluated them. But I think those 5 tackles go within the top 25. And, if you're an NFL team and you're looking at where things are slotting, and especially if you're like the Eagles and you don't know how long your right tackle is going to be there, I see them and those other 4 guys are gone, which is very likely. When you look at the different teams that are there, I don't see him making it past the Eagles. And so I think it's going to be there and he's gone. So I just don't believe that offensive tackle is going to be there for somebody that they would want to have as an NFL ready first round pick.
Yeah.
They may go Max Iheanacho, but he's going to be a redshirt guy. Like they need him to sit for a year. And that can be also where the 49ers and Trent Williams are working through.
First round, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do well, right? Are you? You're not going to do a first round pick for a red shirt.
Here's why you would do it as a first round is that you're banking on that 5th year option. So you assume that you get an extra year with that guy before, so you can redshirt in a sense. Now, in another sense, you have a fully guaranteed contract and that you need to have an impact player early on. When you look at what the 49ers do, and this is, again, comes down to 49ers draft strategy, it's all part of their cap management. They're not afraid to make players the highest paid players at their position. Trent Williams, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, or not for George Kittle, I mean, um, Christian McCaffrey. You see guys, Nick Bosa, that they don't have a problem making some players the highest paid players at their positions. They are willing to pay for their homegrown proven players.
Yeah.
With that, if you're going to do that, then you also have to figure where are positions that you can save premium cap dollars. So let's just review some of their draft strategies. If you go back to 2020, okay, Jimmy G's in there. He misses all but 6 games, I think, with a high ankle sprain. He misses a bunch of time. He was at one point the highest paid quarterback in the league. And they're sitting there with with a huge franchise quarterback contract, missing most of the year. And they're going into that offseason and they're looking at that they're going to lose that they had just come off an offseason where, because of having a quarterback on a franchise contract, they traded away DeForest Buckner, tried to draft his replacement. That they kept Eric Armstead. They paid Eric Armstead. That, you're having to lose some of these players because you have a premium position being paid premium dollars. So what do they do that offseason? They say, well, we're going to move on from Jimmy G because we think we can get the same performance or better from a rookie quarterback. And because of the way that the rookie pay scales work, he's going to be locked into a cheap contract for 4 years. And so they invest 3 first-round picks into the quarterback position. Kyle Shanahan talked umpteen amount of times about how that was part of their strategy of having the advantage of having a quarterback on a rookie deal. When they failed to make the NFC Championship game in 2022, after they came off the Super Bowl in 2023, that Kyle Shanahan talked about, that he met with the team, and this is like day after or 2 days after that they lost the Super Bowl, and he said, guys, I know this stings, I know this hurts, but here's the advantage we have. We can't even talk to Brock about a contract extension for 1 year. We have 365 days until we can even talk to him about a contract extension. So we have the ability to put the money into this and get this thing back here because of the advantage of having a quarterback, a premium pay position on a rookie deal. So when they look at the first round picks, they want a premium position, a starting quality person at a premium position, a position of high level pay that you can save serious money on. That's what they do. When you go back and you look at what they did in 2017, what did they spend it on? Edge/defensive tackle who were getting paid big bucks. Now, the difference was they brought Reuben Foster in. They traded up for Reuben Foster during that time. And Reuben Foster, if you actually go back and look at linebacker, they're coming off a year where Luke Kuechly was the highest paid linebacker in the league, and he was getting paid 8% of the salary cap. Fred Warner is the highest paid linebacker in the league. He's at $21 million a year, but he's getting paid 7% of the salary cap. So when you look at what Luke Kuechly was getting at that time, it would be closer to $24 to $25 million a year. So it was a more premium paid position 10 years ago than it is now. So they invested a late first round pick on that. The next year it was offensive tackle. Offensive tackles were getting paid a lot. Then you have Nick Bosa, edge player. Edge players are getting paid a whole lot. The next year you have defensive tackle because you let DeForest Buckner go and he's getting paid $21 million a year. At that time was like 10% of the salary cap. You're looking at wide receiver they get that year with Brandon Ayuk, then quarterback, then where the next first round pick is, it's Ricky Pearsall, it's wide receiver, and then last year it's edge/interior rusher, much like it was Solomon Thomas. These are players and positions that get paid premium dollars, big time dollars. When you look at the players that make the most kind of money, when it starts getting out of after quarterbacks. Okay, quarterbacks are always at the top of the list. They're not paying Brock. They're not going back in and saying, we're going to try and save money there. So where's the next positions that you have the biggest savings on a rookie deal? It's going to be edge and wide receiver. Okay, you look at who's the highest paid non-quarterback right now. It's Micah Parsons at $46.5 million a year. He's getting paid more than many franchise quarterbacks. You look at Aiden Hutchinson is getting paid $45 million a year. Who's after that? Next non-quarterback is Jackson Smith-Njigba at $42.1215 million a year. After that, it's edge. TJ Watt, $41 million a year. Jamar Chase, then wide receiver, $40.25 million a year. Next after that, edge. Daniil Hunter, $40.1 million a year. After that, edge. Myles Garrett, then it's Matt Stafford, then it's Max Crosby, then it's receiver, edge. These are all the different types. If you look at the top 25 players, 30 highest paid players in the league, it's mostly quarterbacks, and then it's edge and wide receiver. Those are your 3 highest paid positions. So as I've been looking at this draft, I'm really narrowing down, and I'm fully convinced it is going to be edge or wide receiver. That's who they're picking at 27. Like it just starts making more sense to me because those are also positions where they have an opening. And so it's going to be one of those two. So when people are projecting Caleb Lamu, I hate to break everybody's hearts. It's not going to be Caleb Lamu. I think if he's even there, they don't pick him. It's going to be wide receiver or edge. I'm just really becoming convinced of that when you see how those positions specifically are increasing even higher than they have. They're increasing at some of the highest rates. If you're the 49ers, because I know people have been like McNeil Warren, the safety, to the 49ers. They're like, if he's there at 27, you got to get him. No. Okay. Why? The highest paid safety in the league is blanking on his name, kid from Kyle Hamilton from Baltimore. Kyle Hamilton is your highest paid safety. He's getting paid $25.1 million a year. Okay. That is good, but it's not at the top of the market. Like when you start looking at where does that rank as far as players in the league, you are way down there. Okay. Yeah. You're way down there. You're down past Zach Allen, interior defensive lineman from the Broncos. You know, you're being paid less than Tyler Linderbaum, a center. You're at if you add $25 million a year over a 4-year contract, that's $100 million. Jackson Smith-Njigba is 164 or no, 162, I think is what it is. It's no, yeah. Anyways, 168. Sorry. So he's at $168 million. So you have $68 million. If you have that savings at a wide receiver versus a safety in the first round, you're talking about $68 million more that you get to do something with. So when you start looking at that, that's what they're going to look at is they say, okay, we can if we get a premium player at a safety position, we're saving $17 million a year less than with safety. So what can you do with $17 million a year? You can do a lot, right? Yeah. So they say they're going to look at it and say, okay, if we get a receiver there, we get a top flight receiver there instead of a safety, then we can sign a veteran safety because that top flight receiver is only going to cost us $18 million over the next 4 years. So now even you could have a Kyle Hamilton contract and you're at $118 million. You still have $50 more million to spend on something over 4 years. And that's $12.5 million a year. That's a Dre Greenlaw. So they're going to look at it and say, okay, we can get a receiver and a top safety and another guy. If we go receiver in the first round, if we go safety in the first round, we get safety and maybe one other guy.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to where are your biggest cap savings? Because if you're looking at saving $168 million or 140, say $150 million, because $18.3 million is about what the 27th overall pick is going to get total. If you look at $150 million over 4 years, what can you do with that in your roster construction to keep your Super Bowl window open when it comes to time to free agency, when it comes time to trade somebody, give them a new contract? So when they look at that, I'm fully convinced, like safety, if Warren is there, they're not picking him. They're not going to pick a safety in the first round. And this is why sometimes their draft boards look different than other people. And people go, man, they reached on a guy like Ricky Pearsall. They reached on him. Well, guess what? They were also going into a season where we saw wide receiver contracts just shooting up the boards. And so they said, we need to save cap dollars at this position. And so they went and drafted Ricky Pearsall. It seemed like a reach of about 12 to 15 spots for some people, but it was about cap salary, cap management. They used the draft not just for roster construction in the draft itself, but as part of their overall roster construction plan. Now, the merits of that approach, that's a different discussion. Whether people agree with that kind of thing, people say, well, you got a game-changing safety there, you pick that guy. That's a different discussion. This is what the 49ers have done. And so I'm becoming more and more convinced that the 49ers, it's either going to be wide receiver or edge out of this class. I think, and those are two positions that I think there's a number of guys that could go at 27 that we would be happy with. I think slotting, the separation between 15 and 50 this year is not that great. It's really tightly packed. You could pick a guy that people are going to have ranked 45th, and I don't think you actually are reaching that far for at 27. So in all of that, that's where I'm at. 49ers draft strategy. It's gonna be wide receiver or edge. So as we look at this first round pick, that's who I'm focusing on. And when you're kind of watching different things go around, look at that. It's gonna be wide receiver or edge.
Okay. We'll talk more through some of those players. That's what I'm excited to get after. We'll get out of here for now. We'll definitely talk more through edge and wide receiver because I have some guys that I want to hear your opinion about. So again, be sure to hit the notification bell. Thanks for the awesome time today, guys. In the meantime and in between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.